Okay, we're picking up here where we left off. Macbeth had made up his mind. His mind was settled, and his body was ready to commit this terrible feat. Terrible meaning he knows that what he's about to do in killing his king is a horrible thing. It's dishonorable. It's disloyal. It's the worst thing that a warrior could do, is to betray his king. The king is in Macbeth's home to celebrate Macbeth being named Thane Cawdor after this recent battle and the protection of Duncan. And now Macbeth is considering doing to Duncan, to kill Duncan when he's just defended Duncan by slicing and dicing all those men in battle. Lord Macbeth and Lady Macbeth return to the dining table where the king is sitting, and of course the king and his party are completely oblivious to the fact that this plan of assassination of the king has been made. Okay, next, after the banquet, as Macbeth makes his way toward the king's bedchamber, what's he going to do? He's going to kill the king. But he encounters Banquo with Banquo's son, Fleance. Now, what does this do? This takes us back to the witch's prophecy. It reminds us of the witch's prophecy and that Macbeth is about to make true the witch's prophecy by his own hands, not fate. It also reminds us that King James would have known Banquo was one of his ancestors, and so he would have loved that here is this brave man and this ancestor of his who did the right thing. Again, Shakespeare's playing to his audience. So Macbeth comes across Banquo with his son Fleance, and Fleance would remind Macbeth that Macbeth has no heir. And whereas he was, the prophecy was for Macbeth to become king, the prophecy was for Banquo to get kings, meaning his children would be kings. He would not, but his children would be. So Macbeth is reminded that Banquo has a son, and Macbeth, does not. Banquo goes on to say he's been unable to sleep, and he explains to Macbeth that he has been dreaming of the Weird sisters, the witches. Weird also, W-Y-R-D, meaning fate. After arranging to meet again later in order to discuss the matter, because of course Macbeth's busy, he's going to kill the king. After arranging to meet again in order to discuss the matter of the Weird sisters, Banquo asserts his allegiance to the king and bids goodnight to Macbeth. No sooner is Macbeth alone than he has an extraordinary experience. Again, this is a reminder of Banquo's connection to Macbeth, their connection in the battle, the fact that Banquo's the only one who knows about the prophecy. Is that important? That Banquo knows that the witches prophesied that Macbeth would be king? I mean, sure, Banquo's the only one who knows that Macbeth has that planet in his brain. And Macbeth has been reminded that Banquo has a son and he will have descendants, whereas at this time Macbeth has none. So this next is called a soliloquy. Macbeth is on stage alone. It is meant to be his thoughts, but in a play, thoughts have to be said aloud because the audience can't read the minds. In a novel, you would have the inside thoughts, the omniscient presence of the author, knowing the thoughts, depending on how it's written, but being able to know the thoughts of the protagonists, the characters, of the actors, the characters, whoever they may be. So here we have a soliloquy where nobody can hear Macbeth. These are supposed to be his thoughts, and it's really for the benefit of the audience. The other famous soliloquy, one of the most famous soliloquies in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, when Juliet is in the balcony scene, I believe the beginning of Act 2, and she's saying, "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?" What she doesn't know is that Romeo can hear her because he's hiding there. But it is a soliloquy where she's speaking her thoughts aloud, not necessarily at all engaged in dialogue with another person. So here's Macbeth, and he's just parted from Banquo. Is this a dagger which I see before me, this handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one half-world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch thus with his stealthy pace. With Tarquin's ravishing strides toward his design moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm-set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. A bell rings. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. And Macbeth exits, and the deaths appear off stage. Gives way for a lot of imagination. We're in Act 2, Scene 2 now, the court of Macbeth's castle. It's the night of the murder. And notice I'm going to read this much the way it would have been, well, to some extent the way it would have been presented. I'm no Shakespearean actress or actor. I would have had to have been a man, right? Act 2, Scene 2, this is immediately after the murder. So there's a certain rapid-fire nature to this, a certain intensity to this scene. Enter Lady Macbeth. That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark! Peace! It was the owl that shrieked the fatal bellman, which gives the sternest good night. He is about it. The doors are open, and the surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores. I have drugged their possets, that death and nature do contend about them, whether they live or die. Macbeth. Who's there? What? Ho! Lady Macbeth. Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark, I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss 'em, had he not resembled my father as he slept. I'd done it. Enter Macbeth. My husband! I have done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise? I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did not you speak? When? Now? As I descended? I. Hark! Who lies in the second chamber? Donalbain. This is a sorry sight. Looking on his hands. A foolish thought to say a sorry sight. There's one did laugh in his sleep, and one cried, Murder! That they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers and address them again to sleep. There are two lodged together. One cried, God bless us, and amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands. Listening their fear, I could not say amen when they did say, God bless us. Consider it not so deeply. But wherefore could I not pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat. These deeds must not be thought after these ways. So it will make us mad. Methought I heard a voice cry, Sleep no more! Macbeth does murder sleep. The innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the ravelled sleeve of care, the death of each day's life, sore labour's bath, balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast. What do you mean? Still it cried, Sleep no more to all the house. Glamis hath murdered sleep, and therefore Cotter shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more. Who was it that thus cried? Why, worthy Thane, you do unbend your noble strength to think so brain-sickly of things. Go get some water and wash this filthy witness from your hand. Why did you bring these daggers from the place? They must lie there. Go carry them and smear the sleepy grooms with blood. I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look on it again, I dare not. Infirm of purpose, give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. If he do bleed, I'll gild the faces of the grooms withal, for it must seem their guilt. Exit, knocking within. Whence is that knocking? How's it with me when every noise appalls me? What hands are here? Ha! They plug out mine eyes. Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand? No, this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red. Re-enter Lady Macbeth. My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white. Knocking within. I hear a knocking at the south entry. Retire we to our chamber. A little water clears us of this deed. How easy is it then? Your constancy hath left you unattended. Knocking within. Hark, more knocking. Get on your nightgown, lest occasion call us and show us to be watchers. Be not lost so poorly in your thoughts. To know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. Knocking within. Wake Duncan with thy knocking. I would thou couldst. And they exit the stage and think about what Macbeth means. I would thou couldst. To whom is he speaking? To what is he speaking, and of what is he speaking? I'm pausing here, and then I'll read the story continues, and that will set us up for our next session.